Hello and welcome back to the Schooner Pod. I'm your host, Bobby Howard. With me today, we got Jameson Maxwell and Ty Lee, as always. And folks, what a massive weekend in recruiting for OU. The party at the Palace went down, and I gotta say, it was just as exciting as it could get, for sure. So, Jameson, we're gonna have you on, as kind of the leader of this. Break it down for us what happened. Allegedly 5 commits for the Sooners. So big stuff happening in Norman.
Yeah, it is really, really exciting. This kind of event, gets so much hype around it. And having that kind of confidence around our football program before the football season has even started is honestly something that I never even imagined. I know we had talked about it on past episodes, but the thought of our recruiting class having this big of an impact before Brent Venables has ever coached a football game, like these people are buying into the program before they've even seen us, go on the football field and compete. So, I mean, I don't know about you, Ty, but as a young kid who's a high schooler and making this one of the biggest, not the biggest, choice in his life and committing to a program and to a coach who hasn't had a lot in their past to show you that this is a legitimate deal. This is a huge testament to Brent Venables as a recruiter.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important for Oklahoma as a whole, because what we've done is we have completely changed the narrative. The narrative is still out there, the whole betrayed by your coach, small market suffers at the big markets, leisure, and all those other storylines that were centered around Lincoln Riley. They're not out there in the national media anymore. The only time you hear that being spoken of is randomly here and there and in people's wild postseason fantasies of some sort of replay. When you hear about Oklahoma right now, you're hearing, oh my goodness, these guys are coming in, and are they better off having lost their coach? I think so, and I think some of our viewers might agree as well. I know it's a big storyline out there, but we're going to dive into recruiting here because this is maybe one of our best weekends ever. But I think it is so important to mention we've flipped the script, and you turn on Oklahoma news, you search Oklahoma football online or on Twitter, the first thing you're going to see is Big Game Boomer or whatever his name is making terrible stuff and getting dragged by Twitter. But then the second thing you're going to see is tremendous recruiting. And, we can't help what our other fans do, but tremendous recruiting.
And I think that's the biggest thing, is shifting that narrative from, oh no, we lost Lincoln Riley, what are we going to do without Lincoln, to look what Brent Venables is doing here. And I think mentality-wise, as a fan base as well, keeping that going, keeping that excitement going, rather than, just dunking on Lincoln all the time. I think that's a big move. And I think, I don't know, this weekend kind of felt like that moment that kind of shifted things, towards all right, we're really building something special here for sure.
Yeah, the month of July obviously was already a shift, but I didn't think things could get any better. I knew there was more, commitments to come, and we were the leader in the clubhouse of a lot of these guys. But after, getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys in July, and then ending out the last weekend of July on this weekend to getting 5 locks, that is a big, big deal. And I know all of y'all listening are very curious and want to talk about who these 5 locks are and what that kind of means for this class. So in no particular order of how they committed. This is more so of how confident I am in this guy, committing soon and staying in the class. Number 1 on the lock, we've talked about him a lot for a long time, is Jacoby Johnson, 6'3" defensive back from Mustang. It's very important to keep your guys in Oklahoma, and we've had a couple of problems this year. Keeping some of our local guys, even if that was a choice on our end or not. It did hurt us in terms of the national media saying Oklahoma can't even keep their own guys. This recruiting class is going to be looking tough, but joke's on them now. 9,600 rating on 247. He's been a long time OU lean, even in the Lincoln days. And he's just a matter of whenever he was going to commit to us. And to this weekend, honestly, whenever everyone's hyping it up and you're seeing people left and right or throwing out commits, that's a great time to hop in the boat. And I'm really, really excited about him. He's the type of guy, is a basketball player and honestly still has a lot to learn on the football field, that you could say like this guy could go crazy in a Brent Venables scheme.
And I kind of want to, thinking about that, getting an in-state guy, obviously huge, but, Mustang, you kind of wonder if some of that is because, Central Oklahoma, commits and players don't really have the same, I don't know. I feel like all the issues are usually up in the Tulsa area. So I think it's interesting to see like, oh yeah, we're getting it humming with a Mustang guy. So I wonder if it's more of a Tulsa thing versus a Oklahoma as a whole thing.
Yeah, that's something to consider for sure. But I think it's just more so like in terms of how you recruit your in-state guys are going to be a little bit different than how you recruit out of state, because you have to assume in the state of Oklahoma, and obviously things have changed a little bit, that once you give an offer to an in-state guy, you have to be that guy's a take no matter what, that he can just take it and move on from it. So you have to be a little bit careful in throwing out offers into in-state guys. But, Jacoby Johnson is not a guy that you don't worry about that. He's that good. We've had that offer out to him for a long time, and we'd be happy to take him into the class anytime now. When do we expect him to commit? I'll try to hit that on all of these recruits that we talk about today. Really, anytime now. Does not have a set commitment date. But if he is one of the locks, which I feel pretty confident that he is, this is a anytime now kind of thing. So just keep your eyes open for him on social media, and hopefully it comes here pretty soon. Another name that I want to talk about, that's my number 2 on my confidence level, which is kind of crazy to say that even when we had talked about him in the past, I didn't think that I was that confident with him. But after this weekend, I think Colton Bassick from Austin, the 6'6" edge, is a type of guy that I feel very confident on. We saw a barrage of crystal balls and forecasts on Rivals and 247 for him, even though he had just came from Austin in their Texas recruiting event that they had this weekend, where he was taking pictures with Arch Manning and whatnot. But some people have been talking about this, a guy that even though he has some strong family ties in Austin, he wouldn't have a problem going somewhere out of state. And that's why Oregon was such a huge player in his recruiting. And if you talk to me, maybe like a couple of weeks, a month ago, a lot of the boards and recruiting people were talking about how Oregon was the team to beat. And now Oklahoma seems like he's that's the leader in the clubhouse for him right now. And he could be on watch any moment now. I think getting a guy out of Austin, what do you think about this? Getting a guy out of Austin, does that just mean a little bit more for a recruiting class, knowing that you can take a guy out of their backyard in Texas? Because I know that meant a lot when we got Latrell McCutcheon a couple years ago.
Absolutely. And it's, if we can set up that recruiting pipeline in California, that's awesome to get those California recruits, unless we're going to pretend like some people do that Austin is in Texas.
Oh no.
But, anyways, but that's crucial. I mean, it's the same. Texas is a much larger state than Oklahoma, and with much more brands, there's much more competition there for recruits. So I would almost compare it to OU losing the in-state recruits. Not to say that the city of Austin is on the same level as the state of Oklahoma. I think we all know where I stand on that. But that just like they steal, from within our basket, I don't think UT's basket is the entire state of Texas. I think North Texas, like OU has been pretty vocal about, is in-state for us. So I think it is important to show the strength, again, flipping the script and showing the strength of this coaching staff that we have coming in, because especially with these Texas teams, I'm looping A&M into this as well. They don't have a whole lot to point to in the trophy room recently for their guys. UT doesn't even have a whole lot to point to, or even anything to point to some years when it comes to developing people into the draft. I understand it's a new coaching staff, but OU, we've had some stuff in the trophy room to point to in addition to recruiting. Those Texas schools, all they really go and throw out at a lot of times, besides the money, is, hey, we recruit well. You're going to be a respected recruit if you come here. But as we start to build
Texas
that
had
recruiting
that one
reputation
recruit
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, they had that one recruit that went into there, and he was like, these are just all swimming and gymnastics trophies or something. Like, it wasn't gymnastics, it was like swimming and something else trophies. He ended up committing there, but like this guy's like, well, what am I looking at right now? And they're putting in the graphics of like all national championship and Big 12 trophies in their graphics and everything. Like, even though past and notoriety isn't the biggest deal in recruiting, some recruits look at that and kind of take a good old laugh at it.
Yeah, and, it's interesting, and not only that, he's a double legacy, which is just pretty nuts. But that same guy who made all the swimming trophy jokes, I think, then tried to talk some crap on OU, and that was a fun saga to follow on Twitter.
Do not get OU fans started on Twitter, because it has been absolute and like a madhouse recently with all the OU fans, because of how confident they are right now and like righting all the wrongs from the people counting us out. OU fans on Twitter are not to be messed with. But next up, number 3, I feel more confident, obviously, in this guy committing to OU than Vasic, but I think he's just a name to watch because we have to wait a little bit for him. It's Makari Vickers, 6'1" cornerback out of Florida. He's a 9,600 composite guy on 247. We were in a battle with him, or currently still are in a battle with him with Alabama. And but it seems like that lock this weekend kind of sealed the deal. I feel pretty confident that he is one of these locks. And his commitment date is on August 26th. And I've said this on past episodes and in past recruiting corners that we've talked about. It is such a big deal. And I'm going to talk about it for another guy here a little bit shortly. Whenever it's you versus Alabama as the top 2, and you can come out as a winner between those two, that is a massive, massive deal. Like, we like to talk as OU fans that, we are, a blue blood and we're on the level of these other teams. But in all actuality, in terms of recruiting, we are significant lower level comparative to, Alabama and Georgia's. And if we can go out straight up and beat them one-on-one, that is a big, big, big deal for us.
Oh, absolutely. They've always been a team that's kind of done less with more. And, even though Lincoln Riley, when he came out and said, my recruiting classes weren't really that good at Oklahoma, the teams I was bringing up, like, usually would be like the 4th of the best teams in the college football playoff. Well, yeah, I mean, he's kind of not wrong. We're dealing with like level 10 classes, but the difference between like a top 10 class and, an Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia top 3 classes, it's astronomical. That leap from a 4-star to a 5-star, that's astronomical, 3 to 4. So yeah, getting more of those, elite classes, it'd be unreal. That level up needs to happen. So it's good to see that, we haven't even played a snap yet, and it's already kind of getting that way.
Absolutely. And we've talked about it. I'm sure there are technical or a technical term out there for it, but I remember on this podcast we've talked about several times, the term that I've been using is out athlete, and there's sometimes it's, in some cases in college football, there's not a whole lot of parity up and down across the board. There's no trickle down recruiting, there's no trickle down winning situation, although the SEC would argue that there's some sort of trickle down good situation within their conference. But I think the important thing to remember is that you can have the best scheme, the best everything in the world, and this is something that kind of gets thrown at a lot of the group of 5 teams, like Cincy we saw this past year, that you can have the flashiest record and maybe you even have the best playbook, the best plays, the best scheme, the best preparedness, the most serious players and stuff. And eventually, if someone's just bigger, stronger, faster than you, they can just run you over, and that's kind of what we've seen. And I think that plays into those good recruiting classes within, say, the SEC. That plays into their dominance and their ability to do some things like just run the football up the nose. When you have Derrick Henry on your team and you can just feed Derrick Henry, who was referred to as the base tractor at the time, and he can just run up the middle like a giant tractor, it doesn't really matter if you have the best scheme. So recruiting is very important in that aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. Getting big time players is one step, but the next step is, developing those, and you can get by with just that first step. But if you have both of those, we've seen a lot in Brent Venables taking guys that aren't that highly recruited and turning them into 1st-round picks. If you can take 5-star guys and then turn those guys into 1st-round picks that become NFL stars, now there's where you're talking about perennial high-end classes, because we start to have a clout and a reputation around this coaching program. Let's talk about my number 4. I guess, on the locks. And that is another guy I feel like I haven't been talking enough about on past Gruden Corners here is Ryan Yates, 4-star DB from Denton Guyer, Jackson Arnold, and Peyton Bowen's teammate. And to be honest with you, I knew he was interested in OU, but he's a current LSU commit. And whenever I am a DB committed to LSU, I understand LSU isn't as big time as they used to be, but that is DBU. And I feel like you really can't argue that. The amount of players that have came through that program and have gone to the NFL and do really, really well as a defensive back is, they're very, I don't think there's an argument of who's DBU. It's LSU. And it's hard to kind of flip a guy like that. But he's got Jackson Arnold in his ear, and Peyton Bowen, even though he's a Notre Dame commit, definitely really likes OU and has a lot of positive things to say about our program. It seems that we might have gotten to him, and he would be a really, really nice addition to this class, because if you kind of look at it as a whole, even though, got Josiah Wagner last week, the defensive back room is definitely the skinniest, and adding him, a 4-star guy who's really technically sound and is very talented, that would be a huge, huge get for us. And flipping anyone from the SEC from LSU into OU would be a big momentum play as well.
Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt. And, that Denton Guyer connection is, it's massive. And it seems like there's some real momentum building there. But, flipping a guy from LSU and then, potentially with Peyton Bowen, flipping a guy from, Notre Dame. Massive, absolutely massive. If, that were to happen. So certainly love seeing Jackson Arnold out there getting some good momentum going for the Sooners. And, like you said, having someone flip from what is definitively DBU, that's massive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Go
for it, Ty.
I was just going to say an important footnote that I think maybe some other people, as they're listening to this, might be thinking about is, with the way that college football is going right now and is projected to go in the near future, the future that these guys will be playing in, this initial commitment is not necessarily as set in stone as it was before. So I almost wonder if it is becoming easier to flip people. And this is not specific to the guy we're talking about right now or anyone, but it might even become easier to flip people in some sense, that a guy understands that where he goes as a freshman or as a sophomore, whatever else, isn't necessarily where he's going to have to stay. And he's really not going to have to face very many repercussions down the road if he chooses to move elsewhere, especially if he's someone that maintains prospects. So not necessarily specific to this guy, just something that I think is a good footnote when we're talking flipping recruits.
Yeah, I am going to clarify for MES in the chat. These are my predictions, and this is kind of what a lot of people are predicting as well. Obviously, it's a lot of speculation because no one's going to actually tell you outright these are the guys that committed, because most experts in the space of recruiting will not tell you, but will hint around it, because they don't want to take away that moment of that commitment from that player, because, these are kids we're talking about here, and it's an extremely big deal for them. And their whole life is kind of, to this point, is leading up to this moment, that you don't want to say, looks like that Yates is going to be flipping from LSU, and you put that on a board or in some Twitter somewhere, and it's completely blow up that kid's moment. So that it's all about speculation. But for the majority of people in the recruiting space, these are the top 5 names that I'm saying here that are the favorites to be those locks. And I left number 5 to be the biggest name that everyone's been talking about. And I've got some interesting points on it. And Bobby and I have been talking in group text, talking about kind of how we view this a little bit differently. But David Hicks is a huge, huge deal. And obviously that's why the majority of people want to listen to this episode, is what is going on with David Hicks. I truly think he is one of the locks. I do. I think that he did give a commitment to Brent Venables this weekend. But what does that mean moving forward? Just for people that don't know who David Hicks is, this is the best defensive lineman in the country. Just straight up. Most recruiting services, if not all of them, say that. He is an absolute monster of a man from Allen, Texas, 5-star top 10 player in the country. And it's not just because he's a monster and extremely athletically gifted. If you watch his tape, this guy's got great handwork and footwork. He's doing things that they teach, college kids to do. When you're playing 6A football in Texas and you're getting coached at Allen, like he's learning things, and you can tell he's developed a lot of stuff into his game. So we're not just getting, a physical freak only. We're getting a skilled defensive lineman if we could get David Hicks from this class. The problem with him, and this is what kind of where I'll bring Bobby in, is, this guy's commitment date is set for January. Whenever you're a top end player, a lot of those guys like to wait till January, do the All-American game. And that's a big deal for him. But if you are a commitment and you gave your commitment to Brent Venables this weekend at OU, Brent Venables says you can't be an OU commit unless you don't take any more visits. And I just don't see David Hicks not taking any more visits until January. And I understand you're like, oh, but he's just committing to keep a spot in this class. Like that kind of player is going to have a spot in this class no matter what. So I think technically this lock, how we should envision it for David Hicks, is essentially now we're the leader. We have eclipsed Texas A&M as the number one team and the favorite here. And it's going to be a battle until January to get David Hicks. But that is something to be extremely excited about for David Hicks, because I think that the players might view him as a commit and have him in all their group texts together to OU. But in terms of it being official, we're going to have to wait and see throughout the season.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is it certainly is something to be excited about, but I feel like, the kind of approaching it as, well, you never know what'll happen between now and January. As we all know, as OU, podcasters who have followed this team through what was quite a tumultuous offseason, anything can happen. Well, look at Gabriel Brownlow Dindy from last year. Obviously he was in, and then Lincoln left and he was out. So, obviously a lot can happen. And especially with Texas A&M, as we saw from their recruiting class last year, those bags can come in. You can flip a guy back, and right now nobody's killing the bagman game more than Texas A&M. So I wouldn't fully be pumped yet, but I would be pretty excited if he actually is a commit and he actually stays true to his word and follows through with the Brent Venables structure of a commit, because this might actually be the first true test of, hey, all right, if you're actually committed, no visits, all that's going to be tricky, especially with just kind of how A&M is, as we've seen, with like Malachi Nelson taking a visit out there, which is pretty crazy because he, was as ride or die of a guy to Lincoln Riley as you've been able to see. So you never know with the Aggies. I wouldn't be like, this is a lock, it's over with, but it's certainly something to be absolutely thrilled about, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I were a betting man, I would go to our wonderful sponsors, DraftKings, and look for some lines on whether or not someone would flip. But I think when it comes to
they're starting to bet on high schoolers.
I don't think they have. God, one day.
Put it past people. They would do it. There are people who would do that.
Oh yeah, I love that. Like the I forget the characters' names, but the guys from Caddyshack that are in the bushes the whole time, just putting money on every single thing. $5 he picks his nose, $10 he eats it. Famous Caddyshack line. But what I wanted to say when it comes to guys like this, the late great, not necessarily late because he's not dead yet, but maybe one day, Mike Tyson once said, "Everybody's got a plan to get punched in the mouth." So who knows? No. Now we're feuding with Jimbo Fisher and Mike Tyson.
What was that?
One I'm significantly more scared of.
Oh my God, that's so good.
That's what it sounds like, isn't it?
I like that you
dared to do. It was kind of Mickey Mouse as Mike Tyson.
It's kind of a lift. But
yeah, you do a better Mike Tyson. But
I just did a. It's honestly, it's just something you just probably. I appreciate that you shot for the moon there, but unfortunately, just landed a little short there.
Oh my God,
incredible!
But the thing is with David Hicks, like Bobby said, and I think we've came to an agreement on this, is something to be extremely excited about, but don't expect him to be committing publicly to us. But we should be the number one team right now. But you also got to start thinking about like the phenomenon of like groupthink and a little bit of peer pressure, I guess, in this situation. Because my guess is he wasn't, the second or the third lock. He probably was number 4 or number 5. Whenever you are in this really fun environment and you're getting along with all these people and you're starting to see other people commit and people are like pushing you kind of to like, come on, you want to, obviously you like OU the most, just commit. Why not? Like, there's probably a little bit of pushing here and there. And then once he gets home and he kind of sits and thinks about it for a couple weeks, and, the high of everything dies off and maybe he takes another visit, to Texas A&M or whatnot, like this, might fizzle just a little bit. So I think being number 1 for David Hicks is something I am ecstatic about. And if we could grab him, is this like even better than Gerald McCoy level of a type of defensive player that we've got in this class? Like, I can't name you a comparable defensive line or defensive prospect that we've actually got. Other than, I guess, Dindy would have been the closest thing, Bobby.
Yeah, no, he's McCoy level without a doubt. Just looking at it, I think he's the top defensive tackle in the country. He's the third best player in the state of Texas, something like that. I've seen. You can never. It never
depends
know
where you look.
It depends where you look. This is a 5-star type of guy. And not only that, there are just physically not a lot of people that large and that capable in the country. Like, they just do not exist. So the fact
number
that you have
1 Texas.
Yeah, the fact that you have one that, like, a guy who has that size, but also those skills at an early age, before even getting in with, Todd Bates and Miguel Chavis.
Chavis, yeah.
Is it
Chavis?
Chavis?
Yes, it's Chavis. It's Chavis. Yeah, but I keep saying Chavis.
It's fair. We'll get there. We need to be a better last name podcast on that, I guess.
This is what you come here for.
Yeah, exactly. We trying to figure out how to say our coach's names correctly. Apparently, I screwed up Venables sometimes.
You almost did it.
I almost did. I started overthinking about it. But no, I'm saying, like, McCoy. I'm trying to pull up his old 247, but he was a massive. He was out of he's out of OKC, so just. That was a big time thing, But
best OU player currently in the NFL.
Oh God!
According to former rankings of Ty, absolute wild. And we're like, I think we all know who's going to be number 1 here. And Bobby like Trent Williams. Ty hits him with the Gerald McCoy, the Allen Iverson.
On a more serious note, while you guys are pulling things up, it's important to note that not all recruits are created alike. And I think it's also important to note that you don't get to the level that he's at without being someone that loves the game. And he's also a high school guy. Who doesn't love, especially high school guys, getting treated like a prince? You can't expect a guy to commit early somewhere, especially if it's the Oklahoma situation where we're saying, hey, if you're committed, you're not taking visits, you're not taking anything else. Even if I'm in his seat and I'm 100% committed to OU, I'm still a top 10 in the nation, a 5-star D lineman, a position that everyone wants. No one's going to turn that down. Quarterbacks, receivers, running backs, those are the flashy ones. Those are the carbs. But the linemen are the meat to the meal that you're having there. They're the ones that hold it down. I would be taking I wouldn't necessarily be taking my time in a sort of malicious way, but you can't blame me. He's getting to go see all of these tremendous programs. If you just love college football, wouldn't you love to be in that position where Jimbo Fisher calls you and says, hey, how about you come on over? I'll show you our facilities. We can sit down and talk for however long. Nick Saban, whoever's the coach at Texas right now. And just all those. I'd be touring UNT, which I'm pretty sure anyone that is on an inhaler or even not on an inhaler, either one, doesn't matter. You could get an official visit from UNT's football team. But I think, you can't blame a guy for not taking this offer that OU was offering. Not that it's not a good one, but it's, this whole Brent Venables system of once you're committed here is understandable, but it also receives some understandable criticism. So I can't fault a guy for, Oklahoma. Even Bama, if you're at this level of recruit, is not necessarily a program where they call you and the second you get a call from OU, unfortunately, as much as I want us to be, you hang up the phone, you don't talk to anyone else. You're going to talk to anyone else, even if it's to get some free meals and go see some ridiculous facilities and get to meet just literal celebrities that are parts of I would love to go see Miami's facility and talk to Cristobal. I would love to go talk to Jimbo Fisher, Nick Saban. I'd go talk to Dan Mullen in Florida. You can't blame a guy for that.
Would he just be like fishing or just hanging out? Or
do you remember the fiasco?
I'll tell you.
We need it.
I have some words for you. I'll tell you that.
Dan Mullen also wouldn't want to recruit anyways. He's too busy. Like even if he was still employed by Florida, he would just be like, I don't want to talk to you at all.
You're not good enough. But okay, so going over the 5 people I think the locks are Jacoby Johnson, Colton Vasek, Makari Vickers, Ryan Yates, and David Hicks. And there was a commit that's already announced from this weekend. It was Trey Brown, a preferred walk-on, but he was not one of the locks. He did not get an emoji for this weekend. So if you were wondering, that is not one of them. But let's talk about a couple more other guys in terms of this class and who are there this weekend that we could also see possibly be a commit in the near future. That didn't get a lock yet. We've already talked about Peyton Bowen, but I want to kind of hit on him again. He came with his brother, Eli Bowen, and Jackson Arnold and Ryan Yates, 4 guys all from the same high school on this trip. And he just got upgraded to a 5-star on 3. This is a 5-star defensive back committed to Notre Dame that I wouldn't be surprised if we lead for him right now, but he has such a strong connection with an early commitment to Notre Dame that it's be pretty hard to really cut that off. It's going to hurt him because that's just imagine go back in the day, imagine how hard it was to break up with your first girlfriend. Maybe you didn't like them the most, they were just your first one, but you just don't know how to do it. It's just hard to cut it off, even if you know deep down that there's someone better for you in your future. So it might take a little bit of time and it might be an awkward, uncomfortable situation for him, but there's going to be people, a great support system around him that if he wants to make that decision, they'll make him feel right at home.
That was an oddly specific and awkwardly long analogy.
Especially when you're thinking about Marcus Freeman as the girlfriend, which would be even funnier if it was Brian Kelly though.
I wasn't thinking of it like that. I don't know.
You're really trying to break up this family after everything I've done.
Marcus Freeman's a great guy. That would hurt though. It would hurt to give him the rejection. He just seems like a genuinely great guy. What a move from him to Brian Kelly.
Oh yeah, way more likable. Also, he probably, won't send up I'm not going to take that joke. But anyways, Marcus Freeman is a generally likable guy. His little video where they did the Notre Dame uniform release for their Vegas game, pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
but let's go down the list a little bit more. There's still a lot to talk about in this pod. I see a couple of people talking in the chat about Jordan Raynaud, 4-star defensive lineman out of Tyler, Texas, like a 9,600 composite guy on 247. I've said that about 3 recruits so far, which 9,600 is a high number. That's great. He got a couple of crystal balls this weekend. I think I saw Parker Thune of 247 give him one. And we made good strides with him. But this is another guy, I kind of hinted at it when we were talking about Makari Vickers. This is another guy that we're fighting with Alabama for. And if we could come out in that one, that would be big. And you could see some of our coaches talking on Twitter. I forget who exactly it was. Mamas, you don't have to worry about your boys, getting double teamed anymore on the defensive line when you come play for OU because we're going to have that good of a class. And honestly, that shows some, pretty confidence. And I guarantee you they're kind of talking about Jordan Raynaud and Hicks here because if you put those 2 next to each other in the class, that is fun. They are just absolute 2 monsters of men that would give some people problems. And then those 2 guys, and guess what? Let's not forget about PJ Adebawore, our favorite guy in this class, said Mr. 7-foot wingspan. If you're trying to block 2 monsters of men on the outside, and then you got a 7-foot speed guy with are you kidding me? That is a class I want to be a part about if I'm a defensive lineman.
Oh, absolutely. And just still thinking about things too. We haven't even talked about Derrick Leblanc, who committed a couple days ago.
Oh, I completely didn't even say him, like, which is ridiculous.
It's unreal. This class is that unreal. We are literally forgetting about 4-star guys who were recruited a couple days ago because more just keeps happening. It's really exciting.
Well, this is, the title line for us, or the headline, is not clickbait. This could be one of the best recruiting weekends for the University of Oklahoma ever. Obviously, you can make an argument that maybe there's been better recruiting classes. And, there's once-in-a-generation guys like Adrian Peterson, obviously, that sort of skew rankings. But I think collectively, we are putting together all sorts of critical elements. And obviously, some of this is not necessarily speculation, but some of this is reading between the lines. But yeah, we can't say enough that this is potentially one of the best, if not the best, recruiting weekend for the University of Oklahoma football team that's ever occurred. And when I think about that, the main thing I think about is I wish that last weekend I would have gone to our sponsors, DraftKings, and found some stuff to bet on, betting on this being such a great weekend.
God bless.
And I don't think you could do that. Full disclosure, I don't think that's a thing that they do.
We can open up some special Schooner Pod lines of how many meals we could eat at the calf in week 2 of college football. But I think this rivals 2018 spring game. How big of a weekend. You can see the hype. You remember how many eyeballs we got from that trip? Like, that kind of feels like this. And I said in the past, I didn't know if we were going to get this type of feeling that we had with the eyeballs and, this I can't wait to see who's going to be our next commit kind of thing that we have with Lincoln Riley. We're getting with Venables. This feels great. And honestly, another guy that could be committing in maybe 3 or so weeks, August 26th days, Anthony Evans, 5'11", 4-star wide receiver out of Converse, Texas. He got a couple of crystal balls from the 247 guys this weekend. And he is another speed guy, kind of like Petaway. He would be a lot of fun on this in this class because I kind of started thinking about it and I was like, it's really nice getting speed guys because other than Mario Williams, I feel like OU has really struggled to get guys that are like absolute burners and speedsters in their classes. Like we knew Marvin Mims had some speed, but it's not like it's, I feel like when we were going through recruitment with him, it was more like he's just really like sound and does everything right and he's got some speed, but it's not like he's a burner kind of speed. Having 2 guys that can take the top off in this class would be a lot of fun. And just add it on. This is the cherry on top, honestly. There's a lot going on with this class already. And Anthony Evans on top of it would be a lot of fun.
Well, and, when you think about it, the best burners we've had the past couple of years, Hollywood Brown, D.D. Westbrook, both of those guys were, JUCO guys. So, we haven't been the best at getting them out there, mainly because I don't think we had traditionally been a very great wide receiver recruiting type of, program, just overall. I mean, you had guys like Sterling Shepard who, don't get me wrong, they were great, but he was like a 3-star guy. Maybe he was a 4-star by the end.
He was 4-star. He got bumped.
He got bumped, yeah, but mostly operated as a 3-star guy in high school, but developed into what he was and what he is. So, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, but I'd love to see that. And of course, we don't. You can't forget about the time where we got 3 5-star wide receivers and they all just, well, we have one.
I think Theo could do well this season. We'll see.
I think he can.
We'll see about it.
I'm not calling it. Well,
2 of them are still in Oklahoma.
Oh no, that's good.
One plays for the longest yard.
Oh no! Oh no!
Honestly, I honestly be curious to see what he's doing right now because I really don't know.
He's going to the tree outs.
Oh God!
Goodness gracious!
So Jameson, how far do you think this class can go? What do you think the ceiling is? Is there a ceiling?
That's the thing. I was going to bring it up because we're already right now before all of these locks and before all these guys that I talk like Raynaud and Evans and Bowen. We already have 18 guys in this class. And like in terms of the new transfer portal time of the year, like classes used to be 25 to 30, 30 being a lot. Now you got to keep some scholarships open just in case, that one disgruntled freshman comes through one big time program and says, I want to transfer. You got to keep some in your back pocket just in case. And If we have 18 commits right now, we have 5 locks, and then I talked about 2 or 3 other guys that could be in this class. 26 sounds pretty full to me. And, assuming we might lose a couple, but still, that is almost done. Other than a couple more people, like, we could pretty much close it up at that. And that is crazy to say, because I know, like, a lot of y'all listening and then us here, like, we feel pretty confident about how OU is going to do this season. And that's only going to want more people trying to get in this class. Like, people are going to be knocking on Brent's doors saying, like, I wish you could talk to me more now. It seems I shouldn't have played it so long. I wish I would have talked to you before all this hype started. So we could be shutting things down, getting pretty slow, and get to focus on actual football rather than recruiting throughout the season. So that's really, really interesting to say. And one last stat, and I kind of want to hear y'all's reaction from this. I saw on Twitter a great @ at @BoomSooners _69 said if OU only added Makari Vickers and Jacoby Johnson to this class, this is paraphrasing what he said, that would be the 3rd best class in OU history. And 2010 OU was the best, but they had 30 commits. And so obviously that's going to push up the rankings. And then number 2 is 2019, which was, we already talked about it. Spencer Rattler at the 3 5-stars, and then Austin Stogner. Like, that was a monster class. And it already put us in that hemisphere. Only adding Makari Vickers and Jacoby Johnson, I know a lot of people on Twitter have been kind of playing different scenarios of where we'd end up if we got certain guys. This could be the best recruiting class ever if things end up right now how we think they are.
I mean, absolutely. Do you think it could be number 1?
I think so. I really do. I think if David Hicks, I'd have to go back and check all the math and everything, but if we end up getting David Hicks and, guy like Raynaud and Bowen, I could see it being our best class, definitely. Because having 26 guys is a good amount too. So if you put the rumor locks, it put us at 305. I think that'd be the highest, because I think the 2010 was like at 301 or something. So I'm not sure on that number, but I think 305 sounds higher than it. So this could be a crazy class, but I know we have a long ways to go, and it's inevitable we might lose a couple of people. But all in all, it is a great position to be in whenever you have power right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
For sure. I think, maybe it's not a metric, but best class per capita. I can't think of a better term, but like you said, the higher ranked classes had notably more people in some cases. So I think
and it's big.
Yeah, like we've been saying, this one it's not small, and it's not all flash. I saw someone this past week pointing out the Texas situation when it comes to recruiting. Texas has, even through all their downs of the past, since wonderful, brilliant coach Mac Brown, who cameoed on Friday Night Lights and now doesn't play, but he coaches at UNC. Should never have been fired. They would have another national championship by now if he was still at Texas. But since they fired him because they're silly, they've always had good recruiting classes, but it's been all flash. There hasn't really been that meat there. Like I was saying, the meat are the linemen, the underappreciated positions that pull things together. They can recruit those big flashy guys, which I have to overtly say it because this is podcast and video format, but by overtly saying this, I am implying that perhaps that was a Lincoln Riley situation as well. I know we can point to really good line and everything else players that were under Lincoln Riley and really good recruits under Lincoln Riley, but you have to notice that all those other recruiting classes that are potentially ranking above this one were Bob Stoops 12 years ago, Bob Stoops 15 years ago, Bob Stoops, Barry Switzer. I would make an argument for those. Obviously, it's a different system, but you can't. Well, I guess you pointed to Spencer Rattler, Austin Stogner. Shout out to Austin Stogner. That boy can code. If you need to find something from an Oracle database, look for him. But weird factoid that you will not get from any other media other than the ones that sat next to him in MIS class at the Price School of Business. But yeah, I think I do want to point out that we are recruiting at a level that I saw some people comparing it to Barry Switzer walking in his fur coat and saying, "Hey there, son, do you like Corvettes?"
Oh my god!
That's
Obviously,
funny.
we're
Yeah.
not doing that, but
But who knows what we're doing? But
Well-
just like, kind of as a recap, though, like July was absolutely crazy. But in terms of like talking about best class of all time, we have a 5-star quarterback whose rankings just seem to be keep going up and up with his camps that he's been going to. The running back position is definitely the weakest in our class, but we got 2 guys that DeMarco Murray really wanted early. So you've got to believe that a guy like DeMarco Murray knows what he wants. The wide receiver position, Petaway is absolute stellar kind of guy to have. And then the offensive line, Caden Green is a huge get for us. That's another top 50 kind of guy. And then I'm just going position by position. Defensive line, obviously, we talk would be the strongest position in this class of everything held. And then at linebacker, if you want to consider PJ Adebawari, that absolute animal of an edge. And then Peyton Bowen would be a 5-star defensive back. We would have top 50-ish guys at almost every single position group.
Yeah, that's unreal.
I do want to point out, obviously, when you're looking at the run game, the line, I would argue, is more important than the running back, but it is important to note, if you look at our incoming offensive coordinator, Jeff Lebby, obviously, if you look at his numbers, a lot of his games at Ole Miss, we're approaching 70% run plays. This is not that 50-50 Lincoln Riley offense that maybe OU fans are used to, where you break down the numbers and a lot of games, it's pretty darn close to the exact number of plays, 50 run, 50 pass. Obviously, there's a lot of RPOs in there. Shout out to UT, is the RPO or runner pass. But we're onboarding a much more run-heavy offense. So it could be a point of concern that we're not really pointing out any flashy running backs, but at the same time, if I had to pick a subpar or even an average line and a great running back versus a great line and an okay running back, I think I'm taking the great line and the okay running back.
Yeah, and I gotta say, like, overall, what you said about the fact that this class is not as flashy as we got 3 5-star wide receivers, all that. Well, the thing is, it is a very good meat and potatoes 5-star. That is the type of class you get to the college football playoff with, and you win games with. That's because think about every single time OU made it to a college football playoff, they'd run against a team with stacked defense, stacked O-line, and those athletes were 5-star. That was the level you have to get to, and OU is building up to that point. So I think that's something that's I think getting a class that's more that looks more like a Georgia or an Alabama or an Ohio State is exactly the path. So Ty, I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah,
for sure.
Go ahead, Ty. He was talking.
I was just gonna say, I know you guys don't want to jinx it. I don't want to be blamed for anything, but I don't believe in that stuff. I will say it. A class that has a super solid, that meat and potatoes. Again, I understand potatoes are a vegetable and a starch, but that meat and potatoes of the line, of the defenders, of the almost what you would term, if you wanted to use the term, supporting cast, those are the ones that win you the national championship. I know we have a lot of very new viewers, which we love. We're trying to put together an all-time recruiting class for the podcast here with our wonderful viewers that we have. But I know that you can point out, I wish we had this Heisman winning quarterback. I know Bama had the Heisman winning quarterback last year, but they didn't win the championship. Not saying this is the cause, but you can point to so many Bama championship years that a lot of people would have to think for a second to even remember the quarterback's name. Obviously, they've always had superstar receivers, superstar running backs, but those supporting cast players are the ones that win you a national championship. And when I look at the ceiling for a class like this, especially if we start to string together multiple ones, even factoring in that loss of transfer portal guys don't fit the system, guys don't fit the culture, guys don't like the locker room of the other guys there. That happens. You can't fault them for that. We might get some decommits even from this, but if we continue to string together classes like this, we are not Texas A&M, we're not UT, a school that doesn't develop these guys and a school that doesn't utilize these guys to their maximum. We're a school with a proven track record of putting guys into the league, so developing them as a player. They're coming in and they are becoming exponentially better than they were in high school. And we're also a university that has a proven track record under multiple head coaches of utilizing guys to their potential, finding roles for them, getting them play time, and getting them out on the field to leverage the skills that they have. And if we start to put together recruiting classes like this that are fundamentally strong up and down the board, we will win national championships, period. That's what Georgia does. Georgia is not Alabama. I would put Georgia very much, the defending national champs, I'd put them very much on par with OU. And I know OU is a school. We love our quarterbacks. We love our everything else. Georgia's national championship winning quarterback should not be a national championship winning quarterback, period.
It's because the big guys win you the football game. That's why, you know, even though the Heisman guy goes out there and Bryce Young, he can't compete versus, you know, Jordan Davis, Jacoby Dean, Keely Ringo on 3 levels of Georgia's defense. The defense wins that game. And even if we got a 5-star kind of guy coming in at quarterback in this class, our strength is going to be on the defensive end. And it's really, really exciting to see that moving forward. And I want to say one thing, an interesting point that I kind of just thought about, that we don't have, you know, the past classes that are stout and the defensive side of the ball, like Georgia's and Alabama's and kind of, I guess, A&M as of recently. So these new 5-star guys like a Hicks comes in and sees, I see a very fast track and clear opportunity to play early and get 2.5 to 3 years of film under my belt, instead of maybe doing 2 years or a little bit less than that at a school that has people in front of him that would even set him up even better to show his skill set off to NFL teams. And I know that is a positive thing. But most people, you know, whenever they're like, oh, I can go and play early there, but I don't know if they develop me into an NFL player. But guess what? Our defensive line coach, Todd Bates, is arguably one of the best, if not the best, thought of defensive line coach in terms of developing guys to put them into the league. So we have the best of both worlds now, a developer, but no one in front. I mean, some guys in front, but a pretty open front where David Hicks can come in and play or even start at true freshman.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great pitch right there. A great pitch, you know, because like you said, it's that sweet spot. It's probably never going to happen again, you know, I mean, if Brent leaves, if something happens, if there's another, like, you would hope that there's not this like gap where we don't have anyone good and need to get a bunch of people in. Hopefully it just kind of keeps going and everything is steady, but no, it's an absolutely just exciting time. And, you know, like you said, that's a great pitch.
I do want to address real quick. I know we're wrapping up. If you just joined us, I know we got a lot of live viewers right now, a lot for us, and we appreciate every single one of you guys. Please go back and rewatch this from the beginning. I would argue that the beginning is maybe better than right now, but don't leave. But I do want to address two live viewer comments. If you're listening on the podcast, please consider tuning in. We try to aim for 7:00 on Sundays, but I will throw it up here. I believe I know how to do that. MES asked, can our RBs handle that load? I saw you ask this when I mentioned the Levy being very run heavy. Dylan Gabriel, when he played for him, was rushed 70 times in a season, but more importantly, Matt Corral, I think we all know Matt Corral, Levy's last quarterback at Ole Miss. He rushed over 150 times last year. So there is a lot of, I don't know the breakdown of that, whether it's RPO or whether it's design quarterback run, but that's a lot of carries for a quarterback. So that load is spread. It's not we're not just running it right up the nose. And then another fun one I wanted to address, and then I think I've done for the pod, is 1982 Boomer Sooner, longtime listener viewer. Shout out to you. Thank you. Asked about our pay-per-view game and if Akron could pull some good numbers. I think maybe, probably not. If we scheduled Logan Paul, though, individually just to play against us, I think we'd have great numbers. I don't know if everybody gets that reference, but pay-per-view king.
That's funny.
We just canceled last second, right?
Oh yeah. That's
we canceled last second.
Our game's Kent State, right? The Kent State is the pay-per-view.
Yeah. Or maybe we could maybe get Floyd Mayweather.
So
He's kind of old.
No, I also wanted to say that something about that before we bounce. Yeah, the whole ESPN Plus thing launches tomorrow. There is a lot of pretty good stuff out there already. I recommend checking it out if you just are bored. A lot of really good old content from Stoops and Switzer, and you could go back and watch some like Bud Wilkinson film. It's pretty wild. But no, like if you have ESPN Plus, the Kent State game will be included. So you don't need to do anything more than the $5.99, or I think it just jumped to $9.99. That's included with your ESPN Plus, or if you already have ESPN Plus, you're set. So that's pretty good stuff. But it will be on ESPN Plus, included with the subscription. So no more pay-per-view. It's dead. I love it.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun season. Just kind of one last bow on this podcast, just going over everything. I just want to name you everyone that committed in July, and then the 5 people that I thought who the locks were, and then you can get us with the outro, Bobby. Phil Picciotti, Jaquez Petaway, Caden Green, Logan Howland, PJ Adebaware, Dalen Smothers, Lewis Carter, Josiah Wagner, Derrick LeBlanc, all 9 committed to this class in July. 9 people in July before the season even started. That is a huge deal. And then for 5 locks, that could be Jacoby Johnson, Colton Bassick, Makari Vickers, Ryan Yates, David Hicks as a guess. No confirmation on that, but as a guess, that is a big, big time July. And honestly, I have never been more confident about the future of this Oklahoma football team than now, because I've been a little bit of, a skeptic in terms of the majority of the OU fans, because, a lot of people have been buying in with Brent. Now I'm drinking out of the fire hose now as well.
You're blowing and going?
I'm blowing and going, baby.
I love it. We're all blowing and going here on the Scooter Pod. Well, folks, thank y'all so much for listening. Whether you're tuned in live with us on YouTube or are checking us out on wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, all of it, we're there. We really appreciate your viewership, your listenership, and we truly can't wait to start this season. And like we said, we're blowing and going. We are cruising right through to college football season. And we hope we'll see you next time when we preview the Pac-12. And
we're going over the whole defensive depth chart next week too. So tune in at around 7 o'clock on Sunday.
Yeah, I can't believe we're at depth chart time. That's crazy. This is the best. I love it. So, all right, for me, Jameson and Ty, this has been the Schooner Pod. Thank you all so much for listening. As always, we'll see you next time. Boomer Sooner, everybody.